स्टार्ट कर दिया है सर उसने।
तो रिकॉर्डिंग ऑन है।
Okay. Yes, recording started. Yeah, very good morning, friends. Welcome to this special webinar series on bank branch audit. As you all aware that banks has started to sending appointment letters to all the auditors, and few of banks are sending as of now. And this year was a great year for all of us because of RBI new circulars on COVID-19, as well as various disclosure requirement is there, and Supreme Court judgment is also there. So this year audit is really a different task for all the members. So I warm welcome all the members and our special guest speaker, C. Kuntal Shah, our chairman sir, C. Sanjay Ujjwal sir, secretary C. Harshal Ajmeraji, and our mentor guide and Padke sir, our past chairman sir, C. Sanjay Nikam sir, and all other respected member of Navi Mumbai branch of WIRC. Uh, I would say special thanks to C.S. Sanjay sir, C. Sanjay Nikam sir for arranging a great faculty for this special 3 days webinar series. And I request all the panelists to kindly keep uh, on mute. Also, we welcome our immediate past chairman sir, Santosh C. Santosh Sharma sir. So now I request C.A. Sanjay Bujwal sir to give a welcome note for this 3 days special webinar series and inaugurate this series.
Thank you, Abhishek. Uh, uh, very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
At the outset, I welcome all the participants as well as our today's speaker, Shri Kuntal Shah sir, my immediate past chairman, Santosh ji, our past chairman, Sanjay Nikam sir, who has been very kind enough to guide us in this situation. He has taken a very painstaking job to arrange all the speakers. I also welcome Vice Secretary, Vice Chairman, and mentor Fadke sir. Friends, because of this COVID situation, we are not in a position to have a physical gathering, but somehow we have to manage our show, and we are doing all these seminars in the kind of webinar mode. On behalf of Navi branch, I welcome all the participants as well as attendee and our speaker Kuntal Shah. Before starting, I would like to give a brief introduction of Shri Kuntal Shah. Kuntal Shah is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is a practicing chartered accountant. He is a partner in Pradeep R. Shah and Company. He is a practicing in the field of audit, income tax, GST, FEMA, and company law. His other achievements are also he has secured A+ grade in diploma in computer programming of CDAC. He has written articles and papers on various topics. He is a part of a panel of auditors for guidance note on audit of banks 2020, 2019, and 2017 edition by the Auditing and Assurance Standards Board of ICAI. He is a co-author of a manual on concurrent audit of banks published by the Internal Audit Standards Boards ICAI, written comprehensive papers on core banking system. He is a co-author of early warning signals of fraud through credit weakness published by the Committee on Information Technology ICAI. He is the author on note on a review of a demonetization activity by chartered accountants in banks published by the Internal Audit Standards Board of ICAI. He has written also an article on audit of foreign exchange transaction on statutory bank branch audit published by EARC in bank audit references for the year 2015-16. He has also written an article on audit on foreign exchange transactions on statutory bank branch audit published by WRC in a bank branch seminar booklet for the year ending 2013-14 and 14-15. He has presented papers on various seminars organized by ICAI and other professional bodies also. He has addressed various professional gatherings like ICAI certification course on concurrent bank audit. More than 350 sessions has been concluded by him across all over India, over 85 branches. He is also a speaker on advanced ITT course at Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICAI. Intensive course of service tax under negative list organized by Ahmedabad Management Association. is a CP seminar organized by the Regional Council and Study Circuit also. He has deliberated on various topics like role of a concurrent auditor, post demonetization, consolidated financial statements, preparation and presentation under Companies Act 2013, nitty-gritty of a depreciation provisions under Companies Act 2013, a bit of Bitcoins also, Excel workshop for the members, use of a Finacle and bank core software in bank audits. It's a wide list he has deliberated. I'll not read out all these things. Uh, with this brief introduction, I request Sri Kuntal Shah sir, please take over the charge of the session, please.
Thanks a lot, Sanjay sir. Thanks a lot, everyone. Yes, this is a challenging task for all of us because of various reasons. COVID, yes, COVID is a primary reason, but not only COVID. This time we have issues with certain amendments or certain changes in the reporting format that the RBI has introduced for the auditors. One of that is under for LFAR. That's now the revised LFAR is in vogue for 2021. Now, with that LFAR, if you have read that, then you will be in a position to understand that it is such a drastic change that has been made into LFAR in terms of the information that is required to be put into, and the detailing or the transaction review or the process review and many of the system review as well. Now the thing is this, that we need to first understand what are the changes that are there in LFAR. Today, in today's seminar, we'll be discussing only on certain important aspects or important changes. I'm not going to go detail by detail LFAR, because that we are all aware of. Only thing is that wherever there are important changes and what are the precautions that we should be taking care of during that we'll be discussing on too. Right. So I'm starting the presentation. If you have any question, you can post it into Q&A or chat box. We'll take it in between or probably at the end of the session. So reporting under LFAR in bank branch audit. RBI brought in the amendment in LFAR on 5th of September 2020. Its applicability is from 2021 onwards. See, now when RBI has issued this LFAR amendment, they gave certain guiding principles for the same, that which are the changes or what RBI is expecting from auditors. Right. So first and the foremost thing is that the guiding principle is the transaction testing. So we need to now have all the combination of process testing as well as transaction testing. Now, there are certain set of limits given that if particular account is of above certain limit, then it will be under detailing, and in certain cases it will be only on process testing. Right. Then comes the providing input to the center statutory auditor on various aspects are there, and these are very important one, and we should be aware of such this one, that is adequacy of implementation of various policy and regulatory requirements, efficacy of the system, and assurance function, that is risk management, compliance, and internal audit. So please understand that there are a lot of changes that have happened this time. It is not a simple yes, no, thank you report, which we used to do it earlier. So please, this is with such kind of thing, never report such way into this revised LFAR, because the LFAR new questions are in such a way, drafted in such a way that you cannot simply give an answer in yes or no format. You need to give detailed explanation to the same, and in many of the places you need to mention account numbers as well. Now, in that scenario or in that context, let's understand a certain part. This is what I was talking about, review of transactions. You have a threshold limit, right? If you burst that threshold limit for a particular account, then you need to do a transaction detailing. If you have a below to that threshold limit, then the system and processes are required to be checked and commented upon. So one threshold limit is 10% and 10 crore. That is 10% of FB plus NFB limit. If any of the account having FB plus NFB limit, when compared with the total advances, FB and NFB limit as a whole for the branch, right, which is 10% or above, then that account is required to be reported separately with all your comments as an auditor under various aspects, right? Or in case the account is having a limit of 10 crore and above, right, whichever is lower, right, that is required to be commented upon on an individual basis, right? Then comes those cases where the transactions or the account is below the threshold limit. In that scenario, system and processes are required to be checked and commented upon. So if there are if there are accounts less than that, then what we can do is we can do a sampling, we can check the processes, we can check certain master data, and then we need to report it. So understand these two aspects. For one, you need to be very specific onto it, and not only specific, it asks for a account wise detail sampling done, or lot of data that is being asked into that one. So what we need to do is now in connection with the CBS reports and other thing, we need to have our auditing processes as well. If you have not read the amended LFAR, my request would be at least read 3 to 4 times the amended LFAR, and then make your audit processes or audit policy or how you would be carrying out your auditing in that fashion, right? Otherwise, what will happen is at the time of finalization or at the time of preparation of LFAR, you will find that you have not carried out certain set of work, right? And hence you are not in a position to report, and then you will be once again starting with the auditing activity. Gone are the days that you can finish the branches in 2 to 3 days time. It's now all gone. The way in which the detailing is asked, it requires at least 7 to 8 days. Not sure how we'll be getting that or how we'll be in a position to do that, but that's what the things are. Secondly, verification of data integrity and data related controls. This is very important in terms of systems that is introduced into this year's LFAR. So we need to check data integrity, whether there is any manual intervention into it, whether master data is properly updated, right? And data related control system with special thrust on data input used in MIS at corporate level. Now this is very difficult to digest, or probably very difficult to track as an auditor, that you have certain set of things or input from the branch level which is used in MIS at corporate level or an head office level. Now understand, see, there are plenty of set of reports, plenty of systems, and a lot of things are there. Now how would you be classifying that certain information is there from the branch side and which will be used as input in corporate office level, right? Now that is going to be a challenge this time, right? And we need to now focus on to that aspect as well. Now LFAR reporting parameters is almost same. Yeah, there is no change at all. Only thing is that changes are there into this one. In under assets, there is cash balance with other banks, money at call and short notice, investments, advances, deposits, other liabilities, profit and loss account, general aspect of banking. But now there are changes under the advances, there are changes under deposits, general aspect of banking, including books and records, right? And the systems and MIS, right? So there are a lot of changes into yeah. Hello.
Farke sir, can you mute yourself, Farke sir? Okay, sir, you continue, sir.
Yeah, okay. So that is what we need to be a revised LFAR. Let's go one by one. Right, this is going to be we will be discussing only important aspect. Again, I am saying it, don't think that these are the only changes that are there. First, for all accounts above the threshold, rupees 10 crore or 10% of aggregate balance of fund based and non-fund based advances, whichever is lower. Now understand this, whenever you will get a report from the bank, all advances report. That report contains only fund based limit transactions, that is accounts. Right now, for NFB limit utilization, you need to generate a report for guarantees and a letter of credit. Right, so now what you need to do is you need to now sync both. You need to add up
Bhagwat, can you mute Farke sir? Okay, sir, continue.
Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to now sync both. That is advances, that is the fund-based balance, that is account balances, and we need to add up the bank guarantee as well as this amount that is outstanding as on 31st of March. Once you aggregate that, you need to aggregate into the funded actual funded this balance outstanding and this one, the non-fund based. Right, so you need to take that figure from balance sheet, contingent liability side, as well as on balance sheet item, and then you need to arrive at the 10% value. Please be very particular onto this one. It should not happen that way just because one of the account or 2-3 accounts are there which is using more of non-funded limits and less of funded limits, right, and got skipped out. So it should not happen that way. Add up all these limits which are funded, non-funded, then arrive at a 10% amount. If it is going beyond 10 crore, then there is no problem, because in that scenario you need to select 10 crore account, right? But for 10 crore as well, for let's say funded is 2 crore only, but non-funded performance guarantee or the guarantees that is availed by that person is of about say 15 crores. Right, in that scenario we need to include that account as well. Right, so please be very particular onto that aspect, and that we would be selecting that account and we need to report it into the LFAR. Now there is a specific report format prescribed for reporting of the observation. We'll check that portion at the later part of this presentation. So you need to report account wise information. Right, so see, now understand this, because the moment you start reporting account wise, it also gives you an responsibility over there, right? So you need to now have all the backup papers and everything, all the details that you might have verified. You need to be having that part, right? So you need to report which is the account number, customer name, what is the limit, what is the percentage of limit for that when compared with the total advances, right? Funded, non-funded, right? And then the total, right? So we need to be very particular onto that count while reporting in LFR. And not only reporting in LFR, I would always say that it is a very important point for audit planning. At the time of audit plan or selection of accounts, you need to select that part, right? Okay. Then comes the listing of quick mortality accounts, wherein the accounts have turned into NPA within a year of disbursement, right? That is required to be reported. That is required to be reported account wise. So please review those all accounts which have turned into NPA this year. Check the date of disbursement, right? And if it falls within 12-month period norm, then you need to mention account wise details into report itself. So it is more like collection of information as well into an audit report, right? Otherwise what we do is we only mention certain thing which is an exceptional one or which is having some issue, but this time you need to compile certain set of information as well, and you need to report that part. That is a important one, that is a quick mortality account. The next two are dangerous one and going to take a lot of time of auditors. Why I say dangerous one? Because it deals with the revenue side. That is whether interest rate is correctly updated into the system. That is the first question. Second question related to that is whether interest rates have been reviewed in line with the changes in reference rate. That is internal benchmark rate or an external benchmark rate. Right now, see, you are dealing with a large chunk of accounts, right? So you need to first see to it whether interest rate is correctly updated or not. Now, what you need to do in that scenario, you need to go to the system. You need to check the interest, not only the interest rate that is appearing as on 31st of March, you need to check for the year as well. That is the history period. Now, if you don't do the checking of an history period, then the problem will be there that interest was not properly updated into the system, right? So please have that kind of process in your audit plan, that you need to check, select the number of accounts that you want to verify, 10%, 10 crore, in any case you need to verify. Moreover, not only interest rate updation, you also need to check whether the rates are getting changed or amended in sync with the changes that are affected into reference rates, that is MCLR or an external benchmark rate, right? So whether the changes are happening with respect to the rate change or not, right? So you need to check the interest rate tables. You need to check that what is the at what rate the interest is being applied on this on a period on period, right? And whether that is properly updated or not. Now, what will happen is there are in various accounts, the bigger accounts, there are a lot of time the borrower complains that you are charging me higher rate of interest, or at times there are the request is pending with the senior management of the bank for 1 month, 2 months for change of interest rate, and then they'll say that whenever I have lost my request for the change reduction in rate, you would give me you should give me benefit from that period only, right? Now, in that scenario, what will happen is whether there is any reversal of interest, whether the same is properly updated or not. See, you need to be very particular in reporting this time. So these 2 points are very important in terms of verification of masters, right? So this comes under the verification of masters. Then comes frequent renewal of short-term loans. Now, what happens that many of the time, since the borrower is not submitting the financial statement, there will be a renewal that will happen, or short review will happen, right? What the RBI guideline says that you have 180 days from the date of expiry for a complete renewal. Whatever you want to do in between the time, you can do it. But if you renew the limit without getting financial statement, and that too for a shorter period, just to verify that whether the proper whatever is the whatever the financial statements are proper or not, or whether in sync with the projected figures or not. In that scenario, if there is a frequent case of renewal, now they have not specified what is frequent, so that we need to check that way, that if less more than 2, more than 3, more than 4, whatever, right? Or whatever period, short periods or something, right? Then you need to report it into LFAR. So please check such kind of thing as well. Renewal of limit assume a very important role into this reporting as well as reference. So we need to be very cautious into this side, that what we are checking as an auditor and what we are reporting. So the best part would be you start with a blank LFAR, mention your audit plan into the column where the reporting is generally we are doing reporting, right? Mention in detail plan that what you are thinking of doing, so including that part, that which kind of working paper you will be keeping for this verification, right? The process that you would be carrying out, and which kind of working paper you would be keeping in, that is very important, right? And I think we need to have this now, because it's high time if something goes wrong, and we will be held responsible for the same. Then comes the correctness and validity of credit rating, updation of credit rating in system. What happens is banks, many of the times banks do obtain credit report. Now, whenever there is a credit rating, good credit rating is available, they still continue the same, even though there is a validity has expired, or the fresh credit rating was not carried out. So first and the foremost thing is that validity of validity of credit rating. Secondly is the correctness of updation of credit rating into the system. What happens that let's say the credit rating got is BB plus, but in system it is updated as AA plus or A plus or something, A plus plus or something, right? It should not happen that way. So in that way, we need to check that how the things are happening. Why this is very important? Because this credit rating has a direct impact on capital adequacy and certain other aspects. So this thing is also very important. Secondly, many of the times it has been observed that when the credit rating is applicable, but still the same is not obtained. Now, internal credit rating is applicable in all cases. External credit rating is generally applicable on 5 crore and above, but it goes with the bank's internal policy, and they obtain the credit rating report based on the same. Now, the second important part is in many of the cases we have observed that bank did obtain credit rating, but the credit rating is not good, right? So what happens is in capital adequacy, if the credit rating is bad, it requires a higher amount of capital requirement, right? So what, instead of that, what the banks would say, it is not rated, because not rated is somewhat lower capital requirement as compared to this one, right? So what we need to understand is, if at all the rating is there, then the rating is required to be updated. That should be correctly updated. Now the thing here comes is that whether the credit rating is getting updated in CBS or not. Now this year you have a lot of information that are required to be mentioned into LFR, that whether there is any manual intervention or the systems are working smoothly or not, right? So in that scenario, we need to check whether it is getting updated into system, and more so when you update into the CBS, whether the same is getting synced into the report for capital adequacy or not, right? So that is what is very important for as an auditor for us. Then comes the loan to companies for buyback transaction. This is a dangerous one in terms of, because we don't information as an auditor on an express manner. What happens is that there are a lot of companies which are going now with the buyback buyback way. Now, under that buyback, the Company Act is also categorically prohibiting the use of bank fund for buyback, right? So, what can be the audit process? As an auditor, we can verify that is there any buyback transaction into the company borrowers. If so, whether any amount is used from CC account or some proceeds from loan to current account, and then for the buyback, that we need to be very sure into this account, because what happens that probably you may have the balance sheet of 31st of March 2020, and post to that the buyback happened. Now you won't have any balance sheet to compare that whether buyback has happened or not. So what you can do is you can take a balance sheet of 31st of March 2020. From that balance sheet, you can check with the master data available on MCA portal. Is there any change in the this capital? That is first way. Or if at all you find there is a change, you can go to the public search of document and which forms have been filed, and then if need be you can carry out the search if you want to. Otherwise you can get the documents from, or the forms which have been filed with MCA from the borrower, right? So this is what the entire process that you need to do. So wherever there are corporate borrowers, you need to first complete this entire review, that the capital as on 31st of March is so and so, and this is so and so. That is one with one of the portion of review. The second portion of the review would be the bank's sanction, this communication file that is available with bank for the borrower, right? So once you have that, right, at that point of time, you can check that is there any NOC taken from the bank for buyback or anything, right? And such kind of thing will also give you some information on this one, right? So these are the thing. And secondly, when the buyback payment, assuming that there is a buyback transaction, when the buyback payment was made, whether any credit facilities were outstanding, or how this entire transaction was carried out. This is what we can do it on the buyback one. Then comes the correctness of computation of drawing power. Now this is always going to be a nightmare for the auditors and the auditee. Reason being, there are specifically two methods going on, and a lot of things are going on in this DP, because through the manipulation of DP you can get an higher limit, right? So in this case there are two aspects, that is the paid stock, whether to reduce creditors in computing the paid stock or not, or whether to reduce the creditor which are in excess of what is determined at the time of CMA data review, right? So assessment time. So now what happens that whatever is the bank's policy, just make a note of that into LFAR that bank has a policy to compute paid stock in following way. Right? That is what a fact part. Now what is required is that as an auditor, we need to have an Excel template prepared to compute the DP, right? So what we need to do is we have a source data available with us, that is a stock statement, book date statement. Based on that stock statement, book date statement, and the margins, applicable margins, and the paid stock, whatever is the policy of the bank, based on that we need to compute the drawing power, and we need to check whether the drawing power assigned into the system is matching with what we have computed. Right now what happens is it's not only a 31st of March DP. You need to check the history of the drawing power. So now for that reason you need to check in the system the DP on month basis. Right now, it may so happen that you have got some stock statements in file, right, and you have computed the DP, but in system they have not updated it because it came very late or whatever, or they have forgotten to update DP. But that particular stock statement gave you the lesser DP, and the higher DP was computed based on the previous month stock statement. In that scenario also we need to report it that this was an error, and this is how the error was committed. Secondly, in case of the change in the DP, if at all there is a reduction in DP which was not considered into the system, then you need to check from the perspective of NPA as well. Had it been the case that the DP was reduced of by so and so amount, what would be the impact on the this accounts asset classification? That is very important. For this, what I would suggest that prepare a template right away, right? And that template we should be giving it to our staff, ask them to compute and make keep that in record. Don't overwrite that one, right? For each borrower, please keep it in on record, because what happens that in case something goes wrong, we may be subject to certain kind of scrutiny from a regulator or some other enforcement agencies. At that point of time, we need to have information. Don't think that you have a very small branch, 20 crore, 30 crore, 50 crore advances branch, so nobody is going to ask you. No, it's not going to be that way, right? We need to be very sure onto our documentation part. Right, so that is what is this one. So first understand the policy and then compute it and then compare it. There is a command called ACLHM in Finacle, and DP history is available under TCS banks in interest rate history menu under ODCC and DLTL, this one. So you can check the history of DP as well through these menu options. Then stock audit required but not carried out, and stock audit carried out but no action is taken against adverse remarks. Now see, understand, this is a very important one, because first part talks about that how many cases where the stock audit is required. So you need to first read the policy of the bank where the stock audit is required, right? So once you read the policy, and based on that, assuming that it says that 5 crore and above limit will require wherever there is a limit against the DP or the this stock statement or book dates, you need to have this stock audit to be carried out. Now if stock audit is mandatory and it is not carried out, you need to mention account wise detail that in these cases stock audit was mandatory. Before that, also mention the copy of policy extract from policy that in terms of bank's policy, the stock audit is required to be carried out for borrowers with so and so limit, right? Please make your LFAR self-speaking report rather than yes, no, or whatever. You are just simply answering this one, right? So don't do that way. Refer to the bank's policy. That by that way you are also saying that this is what is provided, this is what is there in the bank, right? So you are not doing anything extra or anything in this one, right? So you can give a reference to the bank's policy reference as well, right? Now second point says that stock audit was carried out but no action was taken against adverse remarks, right? Now this is a very common issue that we always find, that the stock audit was carried out but then nothing has happened on the negative remarks mentioned by the stock auditor, right? So that is now categorically is required to be reported here. Now, if something is not there, something is not complied with, then we need to report it into our audit report. The third thing that will come, though not mentioned in the LFAR, is that stock audit was conducted, but stock audit report is still awaited. Now, if there is a considerable time that is passed in between this thing, this one, right, then we need to report that part as well into our audit report. That is what I feel, right? Now comes with obtaining diligence report for multiple banking and consortium banking arrangements. See, this is actually in place since long, but I have seen that banks are not following this properly. Now, what happens that when there is a limit multiple banking or a consortium banking arrangement, there is a diligence report. The detailed diligence report is required to be obtained. The diligence report is generally obtained from company secretary or chartered accountant or ICWA. Right now, that talks about a lot of things about companies, internal, this one, stock, insurance, lot of things, right? So in that scenario, we need to have that. So just check that are there any multiple banking arrangement accounts or a consortium banking arrangement, and whether this diligence report is obtained or not. So what can be our audit approach would be that we need to have here in our audit planning how many accounts are there where there is a multiple banking and this one, consortium banking. Just refer to this diligence report circular. It also talks about certain set of amount of the limit, right? Are there any accounts? Then just generate a list, and these are the accounts where we need to ask for the diligence report. In how many cases it is not there, right? So this way you can prepare your checklist, and immediately you can start working on that one. Once that is there, you can start working on to reporting side, that yes, the 5 accounts or the list of accounts are there, the diligence report is required. In only 1 case, let's say, obtained. In 4 cases it is not available, right? So please report it in that way in LFAR. Then comes the red flagged accounts. Accounts that have been flagged by the bank for various reasons. On SMA 0, that is an incipient stress that is appearing, or deviations of deviations observed in such account. Now, such accounts, any deviations that are that have been observed into that is required to be reported now in LFAR. Earlier, what we used to do was we used to only report it on that aspect, that whether the bank has followed the process properly or not. So we were not going into this much of detail in reporting that whether this is any account is having any problem in a specific manner. We used to check on a policy matter or process manner, except in few cases wherein there was an issue, we used to report it in an account number as well. But these are all policy matters now, which also requires reporting on an account specific account as well, right? So that is where we need to be very sure in this time. Then this is an additional point. I really appreciate this part, that what happens that most of the time our verification is revolving around the bad loans that or the NPA accounts, whereas in this case it is that way that you need to report for top 5 standard large accounts, right? So you need to now give your comment on the top 5. Even though these are standard accounts, you need to give your comment adverse features that you have observed in these 5 accounts. So first and the foremost thing is that you need to select those top 5, then 10% and above or 10 crores. See, now a single report, advances report, will give you a lot of information and a lot of this one, and you need to now segregate it properly, right? So you need to select the top 5. You need to select one side on a limit, and this one you need to select on an NPA side, right? So there are multiple dissections are required from one report only, and there will be multiple multiple yeah, so multiple users will be there for a type of a report, right? Then comes security creation in case of lease finance, right? Whether the security is created in case of lease finance. Now see, there are specific questions this time, right? Not only this one on lease finance, like buyback, lease finance, whether SMA is properly reported, top 5 standard accounts. So now this is very specific. you need to read in between the line why this change would have come into place, right? And what this change is all about. You need to understand this part, that this change is because of certain XYZ things. Secondly, these changes are going to be a revolutionary one in terms of an auditing report, reporting of audit observation. Reason being, unless and until you carry out the audit, you will not be in a position to report, right? So earlier what used to happen, it was in a questionnaire form, so we also resorted to yes, no, generally yes, generally followed. No, nothing can be mentioned here, in wherein you have been asked with specific that you need to mention account wise observation, then you need to mention that way. So you can't duck the questions now, right? Rather, if you are ducking the question, then you will find a problem at a later point of time. So please read in between the line why these changes have happened and what we need to do now. So we need to pull our socks now, and we need to now reporting in a proper manner, right? Then comes very important one. These 2-3 points are very important because it involves the system as well. Identification and classification of advances through automated system without manual intervention. Right now, identification and classification of advances is an important aspect in your auditing. Now, what it says is it needs to be through an automated system. Now, the best part is that RBI has issued a circular on 15th of September, wherein no manual intervention should be there, and the entire system should be automated, and the deadline given is 30th of June 2021. So it may so happen that during this time, the audit team may say that we are still in process of complying with that one. But the problem is this, that now you need to report it in LFR with a specific question, right? If that happens, then you need to report it that yes, there were manual intervention. But it is very easy to say whether there is manual intervention or not. From where to find out manual intervention? There are plenty of avenues through which the system can be manipulated. I generally take a session on this CBS, where I discuss about 14 to 15 aspects through which, even if I change some certain thing into the system, or if I pass certain set of transactions, then what will happen is that this account will not be considered for NPA identification by the system. Now, in that scenario, we need to understand this, that there can be a direct manual intervention, there can be an indirect one as well, right? Direct way maybe currently this year, probably Gajendra Sharma's case, this Supreme Court decision is still not received up to signing of our audit report. Then what will happen is that banks would be stopping those identification of those NPA accounts manually. So I would always say that as an auditor, we need to mention that. Maybe that is because of a Supreme Court order, that is a separate secondary aspect. But when I talk about system, your system was configured in a way to identify the account as NPA, but you stopped them. That you stop that system, you stop the accounts turning into NPA on a particular sector or particular set of borrowers, then you need to report that part, right? So please report that part into the LFR as well. Though you can very well mention that this was done in terms of so and so, but still, yes, there is a this one manual intervention into the system, right? So that is first part. Now, point is this, that it is not only about classification of normal advance, that is PA or an NPA. This year LFR also says that correctness of classification in SMA types as per RBI guidelines. So whether the special mention accounts SMA 0, SMA 1, SMA 2 is correctly classified or not. Now that is going to be a challenging one. Reason being that under SMA 1, SMA 2, you can understand it is based on this overdue or non-submission kind of those things. But SMA 0 contains certain incipient stress details or events which are actually in a way not into the CBS. So what happens that in that scenario, CBS would not be in a position to identify such kind of thing, and in that way the manual intervention is required. So whether such kind of incipient stress is observed by the bank branch, or if something is visible but branch has not considered that into this one. So you need to now first understand what are the incipient stress events for the SMA 0, right? So that is what we need to first understand. Secondly, now it asks for accounts with 10 crore and above. You need to mention specifically accounts with 10 crore and above, downgraded or upgraded, right? Reasons to be provided, meaning thereby if an account is turning into an NPA which is of a 10 crore and above, then you need to mention, right, why this account got downgraded. If that account is getting upgraded from NPA to PA, then why it is getting upgraded from NPA to PA, right? So this is very important. You cannot upgrade an account from doubtful to substandard just because the overdue position is that is the amount overdue is getting reduced based on some recovery. That account can become substandard once he has made the he has paid the entire overdue from doubtful category to standard one, and then he has again stopped, the person has again stopped repayment, and it is turning into an this one substandard. But you cannot have changes of NPA categorization on an upgradation basis within the NPA slabs, right? So that is not permitted. Then comes to adherence to RBI guidelines on restructuring. Now, restructuring is a mammoth set of guidelines, and we need to report whether RBI guidelines on restructuring is properly followed or not. What is more problematic this year is that the restructuring is certain accounts were restructured on account of this COVID-related aspects, where the RBI has given certain benefit of this one. But other than COVID, also there were last year this MSME related exemption was also there, one-time restructuring, right? So these are two changes, right? Apart from that, also the normal restructuring is on, right? So now, but when you have a normal restructuring, your account should have been downgraded by one notch down. That is what the conditions are. However, in case of an COVID-related restructuring, there is a categoric exemption that is mentioned, that it's okay if the asset classification is retained, right? So that is what is to be looked into. That is three aspects that we should be looking into this one. So please check this that restructuring part, and then only you start reporting onto this one. See, whenever you, that's why I've said that please read 3 to 4 times LFAR. Then you will be in a position to understand more and more about it, that what you need to be reviewing, what you need to be collecting as a working paper, or how you would be approaching this particular audit aspect. Now, secondly, LFAR is not the only aspect this time, right? You have an IFC as well. You have a normal audit as well, where you need to carry out these activities. Now, see, and then the certificates are also there. So there are plenty of activity this time. IFC also, which document yesterday only, I think technical guide on IFC was released by Institute. Please read that guidelines. This technical guide, and just make a note of it, how you would be verifying which are the processes which are there at the branch level, which has a impact on the financial reporting, right? So that also we need to be we are required to check that. So that is what is important. Then comes, till last year, our LFAR used to say that whether the accounts have been downgraded or classified as NPA properly or not. If not, whether auditor disagrees with any of that, and anything to be said by the auditor on the same. Now, this year, they have not only said this about downgrade, but also for upgrading. Because now a lot of auditors have started challenging the upgradation carried out by system or the banks. Reason for that is that upgradations, a lot of banks have started or they are doing it, that upgradation based on recovery of critical amount. Now, what is critical amount? Let's say is overdue for more than 90 days, that is, let's say 100 days, right? They recover the amount which would be equivalent to about 11 days, and the outstanding as on 31st of March or some other time period, they will bring it to 89 days, right? And then they say that no, we have already recovered, so we can upgrade this account because now that is only 89 days overdue. No, IRA guideline categorically says that whenever there is an account which has turned into NPA, it can be upgraded only by recovering of overdue amount, meaning thereby this entire overdue amount. Overdue means whatever is due and whatever is due, and if it is not paid, whatever amount is not paid, that is overdue, meaning thereby this entire amount is required to be collected first before upgrading. So if you have any concerns on upgrading and not properly carried out, you need to report it into MOC, through MOC audit report, main audit report, and this one, three, through LFAR. Never ever think that once you have reported into LFAR, it is okay and you can skip the reporting into this one, main audit report, right? It is not, you don't have a choice this way, that either you can report it into this one or the other one, right? That's nowhere there is a choice is given. So instead, rather problem will arise when you have reported something in LFAR and not reported into main audit report, and then you will be in a big trouble. Reason being, you are aware of the issue that was at hand, but you chose not to report it into main audit report as a qualification, and that is going to create a lot of problem. Secondly, you need to issue an MOC for the same, right? If the question always comes is that banks are not accepting that MOC, now that is their problem, not our problem. MOC, if at all you are right and it is as per the provisions and you need to carry out, then you need to issue the MOC. If they don't want to accept it, that's their call, right? Probably your audit will not be closed. Fair enough, that they would be in a very difficult situation that if the audit is not closed, right? But you need to be firm. But however, that does not mean that you should start quarreling with them. If you are at a right point, you are at a right provision, you talk to the center statutory auditor, you talk to the seniors in the bank, right? And have a joint meeting or this one, and then conclude over it. But whenever you are reporting anything onto the LFAR, please don't skip those reporting into the main audit report, right? Otherwise, what will happen is that you will have a problem in justifying your actions. LFAR consolidations happen after the completion of or declaration of results, right? So at that point of time, it will happen that way, that let's say in the month of June, the center statutory auditor is starting to for the compilation, right? At that point of time, they will find that the account is required to be classified as NPA in terms of branch auditor's comment, right? But the same is not mentioned in the main audit report. The results have already been declared, right? So it cannot be in that way. Moreover, RBI also in their annual review might find certain issues into it, and if you have not reported into a main audit report, then it may create a problem. Now this time they have included this part because this one and the decree one, that is an point that is very crucial one. See, what happens is that banks have now got the power of IBC, where resolution framework says that you need to use the IBC route for the recovery or this one. So it talks about this particular point, talks about whether process under IBC is mandated and not initiated. So you need to first see to it that which are the accounts where this resolution framework is required to be invoked, right? And whether the same is invoked properly or not, whether the case has been lodged under IBC or not. There were certain exemptions given under due to COVID, that IBC they will not be taking the companies to IBC for certain reasons or certain time period. That's fine. That's fine. But apart from that, those companies where it can be bank can take them to IBC, whether they have taken the company to the IBC or not. That is what is important. Then comes the obtaining valuation reports for NP accounts once in 3 years, right? So valuation report is required for NP accounts once in 3 years, unless it warrants, the situation warrants that the evaluation report is required to be obtained on a shorter duration. So if you find that in NP account the valuation report is not obtained within 3 years time period, right, then we need to report it into LFAR with an account specific information that this is the account, the account NPA was so and so, last valuation on so and so, and already 3 years have passed, but the new valuation report is not obtained, right? So that is what is required to be reported here. Then comes the details of cases of compromise settlement and write-off involving the write-off waiver in excess of 50 lakh is required to be mentioned specifically in the LFAR, right? So you need to give an account wise information of these cases, right? And if any comments are there, you need to mention those. comments as well. Then comes promptness of branch in ensuring execution of decree. Now, this is going to be a challenging one because you need to check a lot of legal documents for this one. You got a decree for recovery, but you are still not executing the decree. Right now, that's where the challenge lies. Now, bank got a decree from court, but you are still not executing that. Then there is going to be a problem. So what is expected is you need to do an age-wise analysis of decrees obtained and pending execution. Right. So as I have said, you need to check that how many cases are there under the legal fight, and how many cases, what's the status. So basically you need to have a status. So you have a legal case listing. Into that, certain cases would be still on the argument stage, and the other would be required other this one decree is already awarded, and but we could not that is the bank branch could not execute that one. So that's what is required to be reported. Then comes the appropriation of recovery against principal or interest as per bank's policy. Now you need to first see the NPA recovery policy of the bank. What is the this sequencing under which through which the recovery should be appropriated, right? So it can be charges, interest and principal, or it can be principal or then interest. Now just see to it what is the bank's policy. I would always suggest that take an extract from that policy, mention it into an LFR that this is what the bank policy says, and check that in case of a recovery into NP account whether the same policy is being followed by the system or not as well. Right, if system is following something else and what is written in policy is something different, then you need to report it into that part. Then comes the centralized record maintenance, whether auditor received relevant document asked for. Now every time we have this kind of query that documents are in the CPC or the central processing center, RACPC and kind of thing, right? You need to go there. When you go there, you give them the list, right? They'll say that few files are not available or certain set of documents are not available because that those documents might have been removed or for some other activity. So a lot of cases are there. So branches used to respond that way, that we are not aware of. That is only under the control of centralized record maintenance, right? So this year LFR contains specific this one that if centralized record maintenance is there, whether auditor received the relevant document asked for or not. If not, you can categorically mention here that this for this particular account, the documents which we had asked for could not be made available. Any question up to this?
So there are few questions, Kuntal, here from the participants.
Yeah, just
So do you want to take it now or later?
Whichever way you say.
No, like there are two questions which I can see here. One is that can you please explain the procedure of manual intervention?
Yeah, see, procedure, as I said, there is a direct manual intervention that you stop the account turning into an NPA through an front-end mode or through the back-end. Back-end access wouldn't be available with the branches. Front-end access would be available, yes, but we need to check into the system how they are functioning. It is going to be challenging, and nobody is going to tell you that way from the bank that yes, when we use this option, we can even ignore the account turning into an NPA, right? But that is first aspect. What we can do is this one, that is an precautionary measure, or you can say that just to gather an information, we can write it to the central statutory auditor and to the bank, confirming that is there any menu option available which the branch user can access through which the this NP identification or this asset classification can be disturbed, or it can be changed, or there can be any manual intervention into it. This is the information is required with respect to this new requirement introduced into LFR. So meaning thereby it is kind of a specific certification that we are asking, specific confirmation we are asking. That is first part. Second part, I am sharing, though I am not taking CBS this time, but I am sharing one of my PPT. I'll share with the branch officials probably by the day end this presentation background material and two of my CBS background material that contains various aspects of manual intervention. Which are the manual interventions? How do they carry out? What are the points that we should be verifying in those cases? So I'll share that part as well. right? And I think you will get a lot of insight from those things.
And in your experience, have you identified these type of manual
Yeah,
intervention?
my next the presentation that I am referring to, right?
Mhm.
Everything is there which I have observed. Nothing is imaginary. Only
Okay.
thing is that name of the bank is not there, borrower's name is not there. Everything is this one actual case only, right? And
Okay.
there are some case studies as well. You just see to it that presentation. The presentation is about 105 slides. That
Okay.
is on CPS, right?
Mhm.
And detailed paper is about 28, 29 pages, right? So you just enjoy that as well, and probably it should not happen that way that you will feel that now I don't want to do bank audit. Please don't do that. Be positive, right?
Uh-huh.
You will gain out of it.
People, bank branch people are enough smart to do all these type of
Yeah, sir,
intervention.
check the presentation. You will find that we have checkmated them as well. There
Okay.
might be there might be a few new processes as well. But again,
Mhm.
I'll update my presentation, or some auditor will also gain a know-how of their processes. So once you read that, see, since you have put this through, right, you just
Mhm.
read the presentation in a
Sure.
back material I'll share, and then
Yes.
probably you'll get an answer as well.
And we will circulate this presentation to the
Yeah.
participants.
Sure, sure. So that's completely free. You can very well circulate.
Okay. And next question is, what are the general loopholes to be checked while checking the decrease?
Sir, that is when you see that the court has said, or the this that you got a decree, right? That yes, you need to do this activity, or you can take over this one, or you can do this way, right? Now, see, problem is that at a branch level, the branch officials also need to maintain a cohesive this one relationship with the borrower as well, because they are the bread and butters, right? So the problem is that many of the times they do not, though they have got, because the pressure is there or the legal department is following up, so that's there, but the execution part, that is that you need to take it over this one, or you need to go ahead in one step further to have that kind of thing, and that they generally don't do it. Secondly, what happens is that whether when the case goes for this one, right, we need to check whether entire legal process, legal audit, and other evaluation of this one, and recovery of certain aspects have taken care of, and then the execution of decree, the moment you got a decree, right? So that way we need to check that whether this thing is there or not. Initially also, last year also, it was there was a point that whether legal recourse is being initiated immediately on NPA, but this time they are very categoric one. So you have got a decree, whether you have executed the decree or not. Right. So I would go one step ahead, that you need to mention the list of accounts wherein the legal case is going on, and where out of which the number of cases wherein decree got in favor of the bank, but bank could not work onto that one. So whatever is mentioned in that, we need to check whether the compliance is there or not.
So like these were the questions as of now. And one more question from my side is that, can
Yeah.
you just throw some light on that Supreme Court judgment and how it is going to impact? A
Uh,
brief of the judgment.
Okay. See, judgment itself is in brief, so I don't need to brief it more further, because judgment is only in one line. It is an interim order. It's a Gajendra Sharma's case in the versus Union of India in Supreme Court. Supreme Court has stated that the accounts which are not marked as NPA as on 31st of August 2020 should not be marked as NPA till the further orders. Right? That is what the judgment is. Right. So the issue now lies with this one, that what is to be done, because earlier it was expected that way, that the judgment would come in the by the first week of March, but still there is no judgment in sight. Gajendra Sharma's case was with respect to that he had a home loan with ICICI Bank, and I think some other loan as well in a business side. He said that because of the lockdown, he has lost his livelihood and earning this one. So and the bank and the Reserve Bank of India has came out in consultation with government of India that there should be a moratorium for repayment, but the interest was still continuing. So he said that no, that can't be the case, right? Secondly, there was no restructuring or any proposal was there in the first stage. Right. Thereafter, I think in August, government declared the second stage of measures, right, for the restructuring and for giving back the money for those who have repaid, right, interest on interest portion and kind of thing, right? So that way, this various measures were given, and that was those were presented in the Supreme Court as well. So Gajendra Sharma said that yes, I am okay with this and I am withdrawing my this one and I don't want to pursue it further. So Gajendra Sharma's case is actually closed, but there are other 16, 17 tagged matters like Gajendra Sharma, right? Those matter for those matter the case is still open, right? So per se the individual case, I think it is the order has also come, right? It is 26, 27 pages order. So nothing is there into Gajendra, but the case name is still there because the tag matters are there. Now, what happens is in the bank scenario, sadly, the banks have started interpreting the Supreme Court order as if that nothing is to be done, no NPA, nothing doing, right? But that's not the case. That is what that was there into the even petition as well. See, petitions are all from the borrower's perspective. It is not from accounting provision or compliance with IRAC guideline, right? But see, when you have this kind of brief order, you tend to have such kind of interpretation issue, and nobody is challenging the Honorable Supreme Court of India's order or wisdom, because that's the topmost this one in country. So now the issue is this, that what is to be done, whether the bank should be creating provisions for the accounts which are probably turning into NPA had this order would not be there, right, based on the actual case. Then what the banks have, most of the banks or rather all the banks have done is this one, that they stated that we respect the Supreme Court order, so there is no contempt of court petition, right? So that they have categorically mentioned. And what they say is now that we would be we have not marked these accounts, certain set of accounts as NPA in terms of the order, interim order passed by Honorable Supreme Court of India. However, as a prudent measure, we have created a provision of so and so, and the provision for income reversal of so and so. Had this order would not be there, right, these many accounts would have turned into NPA, and with the provision of so and so and interest provision of so and so. Right. So that is how they have reported into the financial statements. That is interim financial statements. Final, we need to check what will come up. So the auditors have also started giving emphasis of matter on that one. But the actual EOM you can find only in this this year March balance sheet only, because in limited review report there are certain limitations as well. So a limited review cannot give you much on insight into it, but the banks have started providing for this one, right? So my perspective, if you ask me personally, that I would say that as an branch auditor also you need to give an EOM stating that these are the accounts at my branch places and which have not been marked as NPA because of so and so. Probably we may get a separate certificate format or some return format to be certified by us for Center Statutory Auditor, whereby we would be required to mention the details or anything and the provisions that are applicable and which will be used by Center Statutory Auditor at the time of consolidation. But that is what my wild guess is. I am not sure how the CSAs are working on to that count. Secondly, order may also come at any point of time. It may so happen that few of might have signed the balance sheet and few might be in process, or it might be everyone is signed at the branch level, but at head office level it is still pending, right? So that is what is to be checked into. But my personal opinion is even the branch auditor should also be giving EOM, right? And the quantification is required and disclosure is required in the financial statement.
And any guidance available from institute on this matter? Any like a guidance which is applicable to entire CA fraternity while doing the
Guidance note is almost in finalization stage this year. You will find 2-3 paragraph onto it. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Now there is one more question, which is there any advances limit for getting credit rating?
I think it is 5 crore and above, but I need to check. I am not 100% sure. It is 5 crore and above, but need to check. I am not.
So there is a limit. So there is a limit, but whether it is 5 crore, that needs to be checked.
I need to check. I am not sure of, right?
Okay. So this limit is provided by RBI, or it is the internal policy matter of bank?
Would always say that first start with the internal policy. Reason being, if there is an RBI prescription, whatever of nature, it will be into internal policy. So bank may have a stringent policy. Let's say RBI is stating 10 crore. Bank may say, no, I don't want to follow 10 crore. I want to follow 5 crore.
Okay.
So that is also possible. So that's why I say that start with internal first and then the external.
Okay. Okay. I think we can proceed now. There is no further.
Okay. So we are on to liability now, and this first point is a dangerous one. Why I am saying dangerous one? Read that. It says that auto renewal of FCNRB, if that is happening, if so, whether non-resident status is confirmed by the bank. Now, see, just imagine you have set of FCNRB deposits where there is an auto renewal flag is on. Now, at the time of renewal, now, since it is an auto renewal, system will automatically renew. Then how the bank would have, a branch would have confirmed that this person is still a non-resident? Excellent point. But it is a nightmare for us as an auditor. We need to see to it how many FCNRs are there. What is the tag this into the system? That is there any auto renewal mode, right? And how many FCNRs got renewed during this year, right? And whether the non-resident status is confirmed by the bank or not. So this is the entire set of process. It is mentioned only in one line into LFAR, but see the process that you are required to carry out, right? So please understand, please read, right? There is a greater ramification. There are a lot of changes that are going to happen with this audit processes, right? Secondly, this states about compliance with minimum balance charges requirement in individual savings account. I don't know how this point has come up into this one, but since it is there, what we need to do is we need to now check how many type of savings accounts are there and what is the minimum balance charges requirement in the savings account, whether it is a monthly average balance, quarterly average balance, or how it is, right? And what we need to do is, as an auditor, we need to do certain aspects on the sample check as well. So on a sample basis, we need to select few of the accounts. We need to generate the account statement, whatever is the type of balance working, that is minimum monthly average balance or a quarterly average balance, and we need to arrive at that kind of thing, and then we need to see to it whether if the balance is going below the requirement, then whether the charges are being collected, and that too in a proper as a schedule of charges. And if there is the balance is in excess of this minimum balance requirement, and then also if the charges are there, then we need to report it. But see, this is purely a computerized one, system driven one. So a sample of 5 or 10 would also be sufficient. That is what my perspective is. Then comes the books and records. You may find something very strange into this one, because a lot of things have been mentioned in such a way that we may find that how as a branch auditor we'll be in a position to do it, but it's there. So can't help anything, can't do anything. So the first point, it says that which are the softwares used at branch and which are not integrated with CBS, right? So what we need to do first is that we need to ask them which are the softwares actually there at the branch level. We are even not aware of those softwares, right? We only deal with certain part of CBS. Rather than that, we don't do anything. So this time you need to first ask them which are the softwares used at the branch. And then we need to see that whether the softwares have been integrated or not, whether required to be integrated or not, or whether integrated or not, right? And to what degree the same are integrated ones. This is actually a fallout of this Nirav Modi case, wherein the SWIFT system was not integrated with CBS, and that's how the entire issue had started flowing in. Right, so that is as I've said, it is a fallout from that one. So that's what is required in this LFAR requirement. Then comes procedure laid down for manual intervention to system generated data and authentication thereof. Right, so banks are required to follow the system they have devised for manual intervention. So our question should be first that whether manual intervention is allowed. If so, what is the process for the manual intervention and which type of manual intervention, right? So we need to get them data and details from them. The policy is also required to be there. 15 September 2020, there is a circular for automation of all these processes, and it also talks about no manual intervention, and except in certain circumstances there can be a manual intervention, but with a certain set of approvals, right? So whether such kind of policy is there, though the deadline for the same is 30th of June 2021, but we can very well ask that whether there is any policy for manual intervention, and if so, who is authorized to do so, and how the same is carried out into the system. So we can also check that part. Then comes the auditor's comment on data integrity, that is including data entry and checking of correctness, integrity of data, no back-ended strategy, etc., which is used for MIS at HO and CO level. Now, this is going to be a too technical this time, wherein there is an issue with the data entry or integrity issues or backdated or back-ended updations. Right now, these are going to be a difficult one for the branch auditor. How we can verify that, or what are the issues? What we can do is see, it is still the institute is also coming up with the technical guide on LFAR. Probably it will come in a day or two's time. We need to refer that part as well for some guidance. But what we can do is, I'll be sharing with you one presentation, as I've said earlier. Into that, there are certain set of things which are containing certain manual updations and manipulations. So if such kind of thing are there, we need to mention that part into the data integrity as well, right? So it can be on an entry, or it can be of a correctness, or an back-ended strategy or manipulations, right? But please understand this, that it is with a wider ramification, this particular aspect. So we need to be very sure what we would be reporting here, right? So please look on to the ICAI's guidance on this one, right? It would be very useful for us. Then comes the fraud detected or classified not having confirmation from RBI, meaning thereby they have not reported to RBI that this fraud was detected or classified into the branch. This is going to be a challenging one, because we do not have any access. Whatever branch gives in, we do that way. But in case fraud account, there is a separate return that is required to be signed by the branch and the auditors. In that, always ask for confirmation from RBI or the updation from fraud reporting FRMS software, right? So whether the confirmation is there or not, that is what we need to check from that perspective. Now, second part is more detailed one. Auditors comment with respect to fraud or potential risk. There is a long list of early warning signals mentioned in LFAR. Whether any such signals are there in any of the accounts in the branch. If so, we need to mention that one in an audit report. Now, what we need to do is we need to first understand what is early warning signal. Institute has an excellent publication onto EWS that is published by Committee on Information Technology, right? That was actually there 2 to 3 years back. You can search on early warning signal ICAI technical guide on early warning signal, right? Issued by ICAI. That's an excellent book. PDF form book is there. Please read that part. It will give you a lot of insight about what are the this early warning signals, and how to deal with that, or how to find out that, and how to deal with that. Then comes the point, that is we need to mention our comment on effectiveness of EWS, whether the early warning signals are being tracked and whether effectively it is being monitored or not. That is also we need to verify. Now see, read this, all these changes. All these changes are not for transaction. It is for processes. Now, when you report something on processes, you need to have a greater amount of information. Right? For account, you have a specific information that you have seen and you have carried out. But for other than those, you need to have a lot of more information for this one. Right? So we need to now understand that these things we are talking about on policy part, not onto the normal this one. Then comes the KYC and AML, adequacy of system and processes with respect to KYC and AML. Adherence to KYC and AML guidelines by branch on a test check basis, right? So these two things we are required to report on to, right? Then comes again an important one, MIS, Management Information System. The new point, availability of proper system and procedure to ensure data integrity related to all data input used in MIS. Now, see, as a branch auditor, you don't have certain type of access is available. Secondly, many of the times we have found that at a branch level, we do not have expertise in certain kind of systems or processes, right? But now you cannot say anything. You need to cultivate, you need to understand, you need to follow these things, right? And then only you will be in a position to report such kind of thing. So whether system is available for to ensure data integrity relating to all input used for MIS. I'll give an example. Now credit rating, right? Credit rating is there reported into financial state. This is CBS, right? But while generating capital adequacy, they ask credit rating to be punched in manually or security value to be punched in manually. Now that is an issue with the integrity, and you are using a report that is coming up from MIS capital adequacy. At that point of time, you will find that yes, there is a deviation into this one. So there you need to report such kind of thing. So what we need to do is that whenever you review the reports, any of the returns or any of the extra system, additional system, that is the capital adequacy, risk weighted asset computation, right? Whether the information is directly flowing from system or any manual intervention is also allowed. You can check it by comparing both information, right? And then you can report it, or you can, if the branch is staff is cooperative, you can check with them that in case of an error, let's say system is throwing some validation error or something is not coming up, then can you directly update it into the software that is there for risk weighted asset computation, or you need to update it into your CBS, and then only it will go through the reporting software, right? So this is what we can say. Last point is very dangerous one. Any case observed during audit wherein data integrity was compromised. Now it is a very generic one, may have larger ramification, right? So I would say that just see to it how the systems are, how the branches are maintaining and updating the system, right? That will give you some feel about it. Once you have the feel of those things, then you can verify that are there any this changes getting made into the system, that assuming that you find that during your audit there in 2-3 cases the branch has manipulated the system, right, by putting up a wrong transaction or in the garb of wrong transaction or some other transaction. Now in that scenario, whether data integrity is also compromised, that whatever data you are looking at is not the data which is actually reflection of the actual data database, right? So that way there is a problem. And this is more of an issue from you are all aware with PMC Bank, right? So whether you have a set of a duplicate set of system for reporting or this one, or you have camouflaged this one accounting entries. So see, these are all reactive changes. I would always say that a lot of bad things have happened into the banking side, and then it is based on a reactive reaction one, right? But yes, it is part of our LFA at this time, so we need to be very sure how we would be carrying out this our activity, right? So please review that. The second presentation that I will be giving will give you some insight through the system on data integrity part, right? So please read that as well. Now under the miscellaneous, that is a lot of list of various audits given into this LFAR itself, whether there was a RBI audit, whether there is a concurrent audit, whether there is an internal audit, forex audit, legal audit, credit audit, right? See, all these names have been mentioned. So now you need to mention against each type that yes, this audit was carried out, this was carried out, this was carried out, and what are the any pending compliances are there or not, right? So that is what is required to be mentioned against each type of report, right? Understand. So gone are the days that no material deviations were observed while in compliances with so and so, so and so. No, you cannot mention that way in this one, because now you need to mention account this report wise as well. Now I have completed this one. Now what I have done is this, that I have selected few of my important updates and how to carry out through system. That is what I have mentioned into the next column. So what I'll do is let's first finish off the question, and then I'll quickly go through this in 10-15 minutes, and then we can conclude. So we can take questions first, and then we'll go ahead with this one.
Members are requested to put their question in the chat window. We will take it one by one. Okay, in the meantime, my one question is that like one of the requirement is that we have to check as an auditor whether the person is a non-resident or not. Okay, so like this non-resident category, under which law, according to which law we need to, under as per FEMA.
FEMA.
Okay.
So
And
it is not only 182, it goes on an intentional as well, meaning thereby if a person is intended to stay for more than 182 days outside India, based on from where the intention you will be in a position to. I may want to stay back in US, right? But it's not necessary that that's how the accounts should be transferred to NRE or NRO, right? But the intention is visible from the visa copy. Right, that is an employment visa or an education visa, or where the course limit is more than 182 days. Right, so immediately on that, the person will become a non-resident, and all the existing accounts are required to be classified as is a copy of with the arrival stamp and the stamp, and as well as active visa. Right, so
you can hear me, right, Kuntal?
Just a minute. My internet is erratic because I'm on mobile actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it audible now properly?
Yeah, I can hear. But do you think bank has followed all these procedure like what we are discussing here, visa copy, intention, and all? Because this
no. At the time of opening, they'll have everything, because intention is visible from visa copy, so they need to have. Otherwise, they can't open an NRE account unless and until that person is showing some foreign passport or something. But in any case, in case of an Indian passport, you need to have a visa, right? Then only you can have this one.
But the question here is that at the time of renewal, right? But at the time of renewal, this has to be there.
Yeah. So that is what is there in LFR. And see, if I want to renew it, I'll put forth my request to the bank with the documents, right? Fair enough. So that is what is I am doing a manual this one, right? I am putting up to the branch, or at least I am sending some documents, right? Then only I'll be doing. LFR states now this time is that, is there any FCNRB on auto renewal mode?
Okay.
Understand? Now, if it is on an auto renewal mode, the bank would not be asking any customer. It is going to be an auto renewal on a rollover basis.
Right.
Now, if it is happening on a rollover basis, is there any policy in the bank to obtain the NRI status first before getting auto renewed, that whether this customer is still eligible for this FCNRB?
Okay. Now related question in this, that usually people go on visitor visa and then get it converted to work visa. So how as an auditor you would find it out? You cannot ask visa from all the account holders.
No. Sir, you are making mistake here. What I am saying is,
Sanjay Nikam sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you mute yourself, please? Okay, sir, continue.
Yeah. See, we are discussing, right? See, first, what we need to understand is, it is not only obtaining visa, copy of visa. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if there is FCNR going on, if it is on an auto renewal mode, right, then in that scenario, whether bank has obtained this or not. Now, the person, if he's going on a visitor visa, he would not have NRE account. See, understand, at the first stage itself, you would not have NRE or FCNR going on, right? If a person comes back and opens an NRO or NRE account, or inform the bank that I am a non-resident now, then he'll be eligible to open FCNRB. If FCNRB is an auto renewal mode, then you need to carry out this process. I don't want that all the this one should be otherwise. See, under FMA, what is there is it is on a self-declaration basis. See, normal scenario is that you need to have on a self-declaration. Customer has declared something. For the opening of an account or a facility, you need to certain set of data or in documents, right? At that point of time, you need to have that. So at the time of opening of FCNR, the person might be non-resident. What it asks for is that at the time of renewal, he is still NRI. Then only he is eligible, right? So that from that perspective, I am talking about.
Okay, so at the time of renewable, plus the FD should be on a you can say automatic rollover basis.
No, if the FD is on auto renewal basis, right? See, even in normal case as well, assuming that it is not on auto renewal, right? But I give a request, right? Probably what bank would say, no, this will be auto closed. I'll open the new one. But even for the new one, you need to have such kind of document. Why RBI is harping upon on auto renewal? Because nobody is looking into it.
Okay.
Right. That's why. See, understand the intention after behind this one. Right. So that's why it is there.
Okay. Okay. And another question is, can you give few examples how manual intervention takes place from branch official, which results in upgradation of account?
See, whatever these questions are, this is from my second presentation. What I'll do is, though we were under LFAR only, so I have not touched upon that part. I am keeping this pending. Right. Just wait for a second. I'll finish up this one. I'll show you some glance of this, how manipulation in the system or manual intervention can lead to non-identification of account as NPA or upgradation of account as from NPA. Right. I'll answer that. Manasi, just wait for some time. I'll answer that.
Okay. So I think we should continue with your presentation and then we will come to these questions and then we can discuss few examples.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Right. So see, this requirement is, I'm just glancing it through because it is all self-explanatory. What I've done is I've tried to compile a set of requirement or audit process vis-a-vis the revised requirement. So this is on advances 10%, this one. Then we have this one. This is the table that I was referring to. You need to mention account-wise detail. What is the balance? Either funded, non-funded, total outstanding of branch, and what is the percentage verification that we have carried out, right? So this is what on a 10%, this one, right? I would suggest that along with account number or with the name, you need to mention the cost ID as well, because there can be multiple account of a customer and you need to repeat those. So instead you need to repeat that. In any case, the format is there, but you need to mention the cost ID as well, which will be useful for reporting and as well as further references. Then this is on this quick mortality cases, what we can do, from where we can get the information of which report we should be using on, right? So that is there. Borrower account, whether interest rate is correctly updated or not, MCLR, EBLR, right? Short-term loans, rollover and the renewals, right? Credit rating, buyback, DP properly computed, top 5 standard accounts, right? So this is all entirely mentioned that way without manual intervention, right? This is on I was referring to SMA 0, where there is an sign of an incipient stress. Right now, incipient stress is from various perspectives. It's not necessary that all the events of that wherein the incipient stress would be visible would be available through CBS, right? So you can't say that way that it is visible from this one. See, there are certain conditions. Let's take this one. Third request for extension of time for creation of security. Now you cannot say anything from CBS. So CBS would not be marking this account as SMA 0. Other than those, you can very well say that whether system has integrated these conditions or not. But this one cannot be with the CBS. Then how bank has taken care of this one, right? These are the incipient stress signs mentioned into IRSE circular. So we need to review all those and then we need to comment whether SMA 0, 1, 2 have been properly identified by the bank or not, right? And then there is upgradations, and then there is valuations, recovery, FCNRB that we have just now we have discussed, Then comes minimum balance requirement. Now, these were the points on LFAR. If you have any question, you can ask me, or I'll take you to that the questions that is I kept pending for of Manasji and a lot of other persons as well. That is on manual intervention.
Okay, so
just check. I'll just by that time I'll open this one another presentation. You just check with the other members.
yes, yes.
If
Again, members are requested to post their queries in the chat windows. So my understanding is that these accounts should be like these formats should be updated or upgraded long ago, but now the time has come.
change is inevitable. You
Uh,
can't duck all these things. So this is what the background material I'll be sharing with you. This is the paper that I have written. It is a part of a chapter in Concurrent Audit Manual, duly updated with the recent changes, certain. It is also part of, only you'll get a seminar booklet, bank branch audit seminar booklet from WRC. It is under publication, right? So you'll find that as well. So it contains various aspects in detail in narrative form. Right, so this is what it's all about, but I'll take you through directly to the question that is asked.
So ideally, if we follow all these procedure, how much time do you think audit will take time to complete the audit?
Which procedure?
Like answering each and every question which is now asked.
Oh, about 7 days.
And that too when bank people knows the answer.
Yeah. So everything goes in sync, right? So see, part C, illustrative checklist on audit activity through CBS. It contains first part, parameters affecting automatic identification of NPA and redesigning of
Can
audit
you
process.
zoom a little?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, this one. Parameters affecting, that is the first part that you should be verifying. About 14-15 parts. I'm just sharing you, showing you what is there into this one. Just a minute. The specific reply is there in. Yeah. See, manual updation in CBS in its verification aspect. Right, so there are various manual entry and what can be the probable impact, right? So interest rate change in EMI, right? And from where you can check, it is there in the other tables as well, right? And there are list of commands as well, right? See, this will have an impact on this one, this will have an impact on this one. So these are all man changes. It can be there into the system, and you can verify from various system menu codes. Menu codes I have already shared in this one. Earlier, right? So these are the changes that I could verify. Some on transaction, some on foreign exchange, some on this one entry stage, right? So just see to it if something is there, and you can get a lot of insight into it. I'll not say that it will be a 100%, right? No one can say that way. That if you follow this one, this will be 100% one. But at least something is there, and you can start with. Again, at the time of going with the audit, you will very well find certain this one new points, right? So that you will be in a position to do that. Now, this is on a guide on audit activity through CBS and tax audit requirement, right? So it is area is cash, what to verify, and system support available in Finacle 7, Finacle 10, banks, and FlexQ, right? It is there for all. Balance with bank advances, there are about 12 types. Right, so this is what I was referring to. It is there in the presentation form as well. I'll show you just a minute. And I'll be sharing entire one, so don't worry about that one. There won't
that we will share with our participants also.
Yeah, so this is what the presentation I was talking about. It has these many aspects, right? These many aspects are there, right? And it contains this way. Now, these are the ones where I was referring to that has manual intervention or probably changes. The question was there that whether account NP account can also be upgraded, right, with the manual intervention. See, this is the manipulation in limit, right, or fictitious credit or round tripping, right. So that's how it can be there. So I'm sharing this as well, right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think I have completed my part. Any questions are there, I can very well.
Okay, so the next question is that most of the times even the bank staff is not even aware of the softwares installed at the branch. How should the auditor
So
find such softwares?
sir, whatever you can access, just mention, or else. But the only thing is that MR letter or a certificate, that these are the softwares that we are using. That's the only thing I can say. But if you really want to carry out properly, then you need to write it to the bank, prepare a letter in terms of revised LFR requirement, send the letter to through email to from where the appointment has come. Also check for this closing instructions, and also mark an email to Center Statutory Auditor and get certain set of information which are required to be there for bank auditor. Right. So, but you need to, for that, you need to revert 3 to 4 times LFAR. You need to jot down these points, and then only you can mention that.
Yes. So we should be ready before we start our audit, in short.
Yeah. There is, I think, a question by Ankit Jain. Any material Excel template that you can share for the first time auditor? I have not prepared anything. Whatever I have prepared, I am sharing. I don't have any Excel template or anything. But I think this is also not, I have not kept it too technical, right? Even my this other presentation is also not too technical, but at least you need to understand the banking terminology. Otherwise, the very primitive or the basic one I have not prepared.
I think if anyone goes through LFAR, it will be easy to do the audit, like looking at the questions and what is the requirement, what is the exemption.
Yes, but for first timer, they may have a certain set of apprehensions or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think, sir, there is no further question from the participants.
Okay. Thanks a lot. You can proceed now.
So like on behalf of Navi Mumbai branch, we would like to thank you for taking out time and giving us a nice presentation, and the most important topic or most important part of our bank audit, which is LFAR. And after going through the presentation, it appears that there are tremendous change, a lot of changes, and which now synchronize with the current age audit, which is the requirement of audit. And thank you for explaining the important aspects where we should focus as an auditor, where we need to look in a brief manner, in a detailed manner. So would like to thank on behalf of Navi Mumbai branch. And I would like to mention to all the participants that he has back-to-back seminars. Still, he has found time for us. And he is awake from morning, like I think 4 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, and taking presentations. So thank you very much, sir. And on behalf of Navi Mumbai branch, again, we would like to hear you soon as possible.